Hello there. Welcome to my show, COVID-19 Update by Heerak for January 20th, 2021. So 20 days has passed since the new year began. And today was the inauguration day. So we have a new administration for next 4 years. Yeah, I mean, half the country is divided. I guess on Face the Nation, or was it Meet the Press poll, they said like 50% of the Republicans do not accept Joe Biden as legitimate. Um, I guess that's not surprising, right? Because I think 4 years ago, a lot of Democrats did not accept Donald Trump as legitimate. Do you remember like some people saying they're moving out of country 4 years ago when Donald Trump won? So, people are people. So it's nothing new. I mean, what's happening now, the way some of the Republican voters dislike Joe Biden is the same thing that happened 4 years ago. Some of the Democratic voters disliking Donald Trump. So nothing has changed, the same thing. So nothing new under the sun, right? Today is National Cheese Lovers Day. There's nothing like good cheese. I don't know if you've had some amazing cheese, but in Europe, they have really great cheese. There's a tradition for eating different kinds of cheese in the Europe. In America, we just have like Kraft, American sliced cheese you put between the sandwich, that's like about the extent of our cheese experience. But in Europe, like they have hundreds of different types of cheese. And they have cheese for all different occasions, I'm like, man, how do you remember all that? But cheese is very good in Europe. No, I have to confess, they're really good. Um, yeah, 4,044 people have died in the last 24 hours. So 4044. In Asia, 4 is number of death. 4 represents death. 4 is like unlucky number. So in Asia, you may not have the fourth floor in some places because it's bad luck. It's like some buildings in America don't have 13th floor, you know? Yeah, 4 is number of death in Asia, China, Korea, and Japan. I think it relates to some kind of Chinese character. Uh, in America, unlucky number is 13, right? You have the Friday the 13th, and yeah, but I don't know. From an Asian perspective, having 3 4s like that, that's like unlucky. you know, I know I have a 4 in my website, Heerak4congress.com, Heerak number 4 congress4.com. But I figured I'm in America, so rules in Asia don't apply. I don't know, but 4 is number of death. But a lot of people have died in America, and a lot of people are going to die in America. We have 405,630 people have died from COVID since the beginning. And this year, that number is going to probably multiply by 10 times because we're only in January. And look at this, we have 4,044 people dying every day. And that number is going to eventually go to 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 every day. That's something that you have to expect. Unfortunately, obviously I don't want people to die, but 4,044 people are dying every day. And this is January. We have long way to go. It's only like 20th of January. We have February to go, March to go, April to go, May, June. That's just like winter and spring. As we know from 2020, people die in the summer. We are like over 1,000 people die every day in the summer in the United States of America. So it's possible that we will have over 4,000 people die every day in June, every day in July, every day in August. That's possible. And it is also possible more people can die. Dr. Fauci and Dr. Gottlieb were saying the new variant of COVID-19 is going to spread throughout America. Dr. Gottlieb on Face the Nation was saying right now, like 1% of the infections are new UK variant COVID, but that's going to multiply and eventually, and I think he said by March, majority of the COVID new cases will be the COVID mutants from UK. Watch Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan to see, you know, what he means. What does that mean, right? Right now, scientists are not sure that COVID-19 vaccine will block out COVID variants, mutants. They don't know. They think it will, but they're not 100% sure. And in science, if you're not 100% sure, it's probably not true. Because science is an exact science. It's not like humanities. In humanities, you can like estimate or estimate. In science, you have to be exact. When you can't say definitively, yes, 100% guarantee it's going to block it out, it's not going to block it out. You see what I'm saying? So expect to be infected with COVID-19, either the COVID mutant strain from UK, United Kingdom, England, or there's another mutant strain from South Africa. And that's kind of slower in reaching America because not as many people fly over to America from South Africa, but it's going to get here. And that's going to be spreading and infecting a lot of people. It's a different mutant COVID. And there's a mutant COVID in Brazil that's spreading around now in Brazil. And that's going to eventually reach America as well, spread around. So yes, Dr. Gottlieb on Face the Nation is saying, well, by March, we're going to have predominantly United Kingdom, England's mutant COVID spreading in America. But I think he's forgetting a couple of things. United Kingdom's mutant COVID is not the only mutant COVID, and it's different from South African mutant COVID, and that's different from Brazil's mutant COVID. So Dr. Gottlieb in Face the Nation, and you could see the show from last Sunday, seems to be leaving out Brazil's COVID mutant and South Africa's COVID mutant. You see what I'm saying? Obviously, they're going to play a role in infecting Americans because people are flying. We didn't close down our nation yet. We didn't close our borders, right? We didn't say no one can enter our nation. So obviously, South African variant can enter our nation. Brazilian variant can enter our nation. And it can spread like wildfire once it enters our nation, you know? And we don't know how many more COVID mutants there will be in January. There are over 100 countries, and every one of these 100 countries could have their own variety of COVID mutants. In the United States of America, in the state of Ohio, we have a brand new mutant COVID that's spreading in Columbus, Ohio. Have you heard here? Have you heard CNN talk about that? Yes, we have our own new COVID mutant that's different from United Kingdom's, that's different from South Africans, that's different from Brazilian brand. Yes, now we have our own COVID mutants that can evade vaccines. So what that means is COVID-19 vaccines are useless. I mean, I hate to break the news to you, but I predicted this months ago. That's the reason why I didn't take COVID vaccine, because I knew that because there's a lot of stressors on COVID-19 virus, it's mutating aggressively. So yes, it would be nice if the vaccine works, but even if it works, COVID-19 is going to find a way around it and infect you. So I figured I'd rather not want to mess around with my immune system by taking an experimental mRNA vaccine when it's going to become outdated anyway in a few weeks. That was my reasoning. I believe in vaccines. I think you should get a flu shot every year. I believe in vaccines. I think you should get all the vaccines that have been vetted and tested, time tested. I support getting pneumonia vaccine for elderly because it can save your life. But I do not support COVID-19 vaccine because it's too experimental, it's too new. It's, you know, it's less than several weeks old. And we don't really know what kind of harm it can do in society, in different age groups, different pre-existing conditions. We just don't know. And it's dishonest to act like we know. You see what I'm saying? Because we have the science. We have to follow the science, and we cannot pretend like it's a panacea. It works in all population, all races, all DNA, all conditions. You know, that's the way their liberal media is kind of, you know, selling it. And it's like used car salesman sale, right? I mean, it's not going to work on everything, everybody. It's not going to like be okay with every pre-existing condition, right? But they're building it that way, right? And that's the problem. See, I have problem with this honest portrayal of products. You know, I think consumers have right to know what they're getting, right? And I think it's unethical to say COVID-19 vaccine is 100% safe when it's not. You know, I think it's unethical to say COVID-19 vaccines will work when scientists don't even know. Right? They cannot say definitively if it's going to block out the variants. They can't say it. They're like, we think that it will. Yeah, I mean, you can think whatever you want, but is it a fact? Do you see what I'm saying? They cannot say it's a fact because it's scientifically not proven. We have to follow the science on this. And so when I see these scientists like fudging and fidgeting, you know, it's a shame because people's lives are at stake. Yeah, as you know, like science is about research, you know, and you see before you poster presentations presented by Kappa Delta Pi members. Kappa Delta Pi is national, international, actually it's international, Honor Society in Education. And as you know, I'm a member of International Honor Society in Education. I'm the vice president of American College of Education chapter of Kappa Delta Pi. And so, you know, I've worked hard to help other Kappa Delta Pi members and to build up the organization of Kappa Delta Pi, you know. I believe in the International Honor Society of Education. That's like over in hundreds of nations. Yeah, like nations have chapters of Kappa Delta Pi. So we had an annual convocation of Kappa Delta Pi at Norfolk, Virginia in 2019. And I presented my research, two of my research on relating to urban education. And so, you know, that's what we do in conferences. The Kappa Delta Pi annual convo is gathering of all the Kappa Delta Pi members. That includes professors, independent researchers, educators, principals, you know, superintendents, teachers, professional teachers, as well as PhD students, master's students, and bachelor students who recently got inducted. So, you know, it's nice to meet, you know, people who are there from different Kappa Delta Pi chapters around the country, around the world. And so I enjoyed meeting them. And one of the research presentation venue is the poster presentation. And so it was nice to meet different, you know, researchers who presented their posters at Kappa Delta Pi conference in education. As you know, I'm an expert educator. I had a 4.0 GPA at University of West Georgia, Master of Education program, 4.0, like straight A's. And you know, I'm a licensed teacher in Washington, D.C., Virginia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama. I'm practically a licensed teacher in Georgia. I have to teach like one day to get the license itself, but I'm eligible for the license as long as I teach one day in Georgia. So I'm practically a professional licensed teacher. And so, you know, I'm an expert teacher, educator. And I'm currently working on a doctoral dissertation on improving urban public schools, right? So, and that's going to maybe save urban education in America. I'm hoping. I mean, obviously, you know, that's my mission or goal is to use my education to actually help improve urban education in real setting, right? Real life setting, right? It's not educational research is not theoretical, right? I mean, if it doesn't actually help the students improve, what good is that research? You see what I'm saying? It's not theoretical, it's practical. It has to work on the ground, or it's useless research. That's in the field of education, right? It's not a theoretical research. It's not like Jewish studies. As you know, I'm an expert Jewish studies expert, professionally trained and licensed, and I publish books. If you type my name, Heerak Christian Kim, on Amazon.com, you'll see my professional books on Jewish studies that you can read and learn from. But you know, Jewish studies is more theoretical. You're not trying to do something in the world, right? You're trying to analyze what actually happened back then in the past, right? And you're trying to understand this. So it's more theoretical research. You're not trying to apply it anywhere. You're just trying to understand the reality. But educational research is completely different. It doesn't matter what you understand in the past, because the important thing is there are children going to school and learning, a teacher is teaching, and your research has to help them teach effectively and students to learn effectively, right? Our educational research is useless. So it's practically oriented. So that's the complete difference between research in history, which is more theoretical, and research in education, which is primarily practical. Obviously, you gotta do some theoretical research, but theoretical research is useless in education if you can't apply it in real life. You see what I'm saying? It's not like history. You don't have to apply it at all. Well, you can just do theoretical research. You don't need to apply it anywhere. So that's the vast difference between historical research and educational research. So Kappa Delta Pi is an International Honor Society in Education. So obviously the research that we present at Kappa Delta Pi are going to be practically oriented, right? There has to be an application dimension to the research. There is theoretical research that is also presented, but those are not as popular because, you know, who wants this theory in education, right? So it's a different type of discipline than history. You know, as you can see, I met a lot of nice people, you know, and I was looking forward to seeing them in 2020, but our Kappa Delta Pi annual combo in Kentucky was canceled because of COVID. And it looks like our annual combo in 2021 will be canceled as well. You know, it's deeply upsetting because I made a lot of good friends, like Cora there, you know, under the triggered sign. I was looking forward to seeing her again. You know, there are a lot of people I'd like to see again, you know. Caitlin from West Virginia, I really like her, so I was looking forward to seeing her again. But you know, what can you do, right? I mean, COVID-19 disrupted everything in America. And you know, liberal media is trying to portray the vaccine as saving everybody, but it's not going to. It's not going to. Unfortunately, because COVID-19 mutates, we have to follow the science. Vaccines are useless. I mean, I hate to say vaccines are useless because that may be discouraging for people. But the question is, do you want the truth or do you want to lie? You know what I mean? You keep getting vaccines spreading, you know, just to give people hope. But what good is hope when there's no substance behind it, right? Like I believe in Jesus and have hope for eternal life in heaven. But there is substance behind it. It's going to happen, right? If I believe in Jesus, I'm going to go to heaven. So it's real. So my hope is based on reality in the future. And that's why I believe in Jesus. If there's no hell, I will not believe in Jesus. But because there is hell and heaven and I want to go to heaven, I believe in Jesus to have a ticket into heaven. You see what I'm saying? So my hope in Jesus is my hope in my future eternal life, where I evade or escape the torture that is eternal in hell. Do you see what I'm saying? So for me, COVID-19 vaccines, it's a good idea. I like the idea. If we can create a vaccine that works, it's a good idea. But the problem is viruses mutate, right? It's not like they don't mutate, they mutate. Everyone knows it mutates. So trying to create a vaccine against a virus that is mutating constantly, it's impossible. I know that a lot of politicians try to make it sound like it's possible, but it's impossible. Because your child, just look at the way your child grows, right? The clothing that you give to your child when your child is 1 year old is not the same clothing you give to your child when your child is 3 years old. The clothing you give to your child when your child is 3 years old is not the same clothing you give your child when your child is 10 years old. You see what I'm saying? And you gotta see COVID-19 in that way. COVID-19 is 1 year old, but it's constantly growing and mutating. No vaccine is going to fit a few months from now because it grows so quickly, it mutates so quickly, right? So when you look at your baby who's just born and seeing how your child mutates, grows, mutation is growth, right, in a way. There's one type of mutation. You can see why the virus vaccine will not work in COVID. And that's the tragedy. And politicians want to give you hope, but well, part of it is they don't know the science. But it's not like COVID-19 stays the same, right? So even if you develop a vaccine that works, it's not going to work. Because the vaccine might have worked with COVID that existed 2 months ago, but now it doesn't work because COVID has mutated. You see the analogy there. And I think that's a good analogy. I'm a very good communicator. I'm an educator, right? So I have to be a good communicator. So I can explain this in a way that you can understand. You see what I'm saying? That's what makes me a great educator. Because what good is education if you can't understand the education? You know what I'm saying? So I explain it in a way you understand it. And that's the important thing. You have to be able to understand what the heck is going on. And that's why this show is so important. COVID-19 Update by Heerak. I explain difficult concepts at the 5th grade level so they can understand exactly what's happening. That's why you gotta see this show every day. You gotta tell everybody that you know that they need to see this show every day because you need the analysis. I mean, you do what you want. You don't have to take my recommendation if you don't want to, but you need to know what's going on. See, that's the thing. Let's look at Europe and let's see if Europe can shed some light on what we're talking about right now. As you know, Russia, United Kingdom, France, Italy, Spain are actively vaccinating their people. So you would think that they will have decreasing COVID-19 cases, right? So let's look. Russia is currently #1 in COVID-19 cases in Europe. 3,595,136. Russia is a NATO country, right? So probably highly distrusted by China. Because at the end of the day, Russia is no longer communist, whereas China is. And you can bet that China is resentful that Russia has abandoned communism. Because China actually believes in communism. It's not like a theory for them. For them, it's an actual policy, right? China chooses to be communist, even though they don't have to, because they like the ideology. So you can imagine how much China resents Russia for having abandoned the ideology, right? Because China was suffering just as much as Russia was, but they didn't abandon communism. But Russia did, right, for economic reasons. So China has probably a love-hate relationship with Russia because of that, right? China probably sees Russia as betraying the Marxist, Leninist ideals. And after all, it's USSR that gave China the Marxist ideology, right? Russia gave North Korea the Marxist, Leninist ideology as well. You know, China probably won't be rushing to save Russia anytime soon. I mean, you can see China rescuing North Korea, a fellow communist regime, or Venezuela, a communist regime, or other communist regimes around the world, or communist-friendly regimes around the world, but probably China will not be rushing to save Russia. So Russia has 3,595,136 cases, 66,214 people have died, 2% death rate. That's significant. And Russia is expected to pass 100,000 deaths in 2021, or far more than that. United Kingdom, look at this. 3,515,796 cases, 93,469 deaths, 3% death rate. United Kingdom is the most aggressive country in vaccinating its citizens. It used to be number 2 in COVID-19 death behind Italy. Italy is slower to vaccinate its citizens. The United Kingdom is aggressive in vaccinating its citizens. I would argue that there is a correlation there that needs to be studied. Meaning, I would argue that it is because United Kingdom is vaccinating its citizens, they're having more people get COVID and die from it. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. 93,469 people. Obviously, it's a theory, but I think theory will eventually be proven correct. Vaccination kills. Not because vaccination itself can kill those who are immune compromised or have pre-existing condition, but I'm arguing that vaccination can compromise your natural immune system because it's an mRNA vaccine that messes around with your DNA mechanism. So in your compromised immune system format, you are more susceptible to getting COVID. Not only that, you're more susceptible to dying from COVID. That's what I'm arguing. Yes, it is a theory that I have, but it's just like a theory by people who think the vaccine will work. It's a theory, it's not proven yet, right? So my theory is just as legitimate as their theory, right? Their theory is that vaccine will work. My theory is that vaccine will not work, right? So I want to see who's right. I think I'm going to be right. I'm going to be proven correct at the end of year 2021. So let's see whether nations that vaccinate have higher rate of death and infection than nations that don't vaccinate. That's my theory. My theory is that nations that vaccinate will have exponential growth of COVID-19 infections and death, and nations that do not vaccinate in large numbers will have a slower curve of infections. Because my fundamental theory is that COVID-19 vaccine compromises your immune system. That's my theory. Now, obviously, I still have to prove my theory. I understand that. But then people who are saying the vaccines will work still have to prove their theory too. So I feel like we're on equal footing here. And I believe that I'm more correct. So let's see. France has 3,023,661 cases, 71,762 people have died, 2% death rate. You know that every medication has side effects? Did you know that? Every medication has side effects. Obviously, you should have to take medication if you have a condition, because the medication helps your condition. But when you take a medication, there's side effects. So the idea in pharmacology is that the good outweighs the bad. Yes, if you take this medication, bad things could happen, like side effects could happen, like nausea or constipation or diarrhea or whatever. You can have side effects. For example, if you take antibiotics for bacteria, you may have diarrhea. But obviously, you take antibiotics to protect yourself from bacteria, right? So the idea is because the good outweighs the bad, we should do it. However, if you are allergic to like antibiotics, like penicillin, then you can't take it because you could die from an allergic reaction to penicillin. And that's why we identify patients who have allergic reactions. So when COVID vaccine, people say it's like 100% safe, or they're lying to you. There are going to be people who are going to be allergic to COVID-19 vaccine because there are people who are allergic to some medication. Like there is someone who's allergic to all the medications in the world. There is not a single medication that doesn't have anyone not being allergic. So when you say COVID-19 vaccine is 100% safe, that's just a lie. Someone is going to be allergic to it at different levels. Some people may have anaphylactic response, some will have mild allergy, but there's going to be allergic reaction. I mean, that's something that is going to exist. That's like 100% guaranteed with all medications. So you can never say something is 100% safe. It never is. That's just a lie, and that's the lie that liberal media gives you, or people who are ignorant about science. They believe it, but it's not true. You can say until your face is blue that Earth is flat, but it's not true. Earth is round. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So, I mean, I'm confident that my theory is correct. I'm confident that my theory is correct, that COVID-19 vaccine, mRNA vaccine, compromises your immune system. Obviously, it's going to be at different levels. For some people, it's going to compromise a lot. Some people, it's not going to compromise as much, depending on your pre-existing conditions, depending on your DNA, depending on pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics, your cellular processes, your inherited genes, your acquired traits, there are a lot of factors that come into play. Obviously, it has to be studied for decades to come up with a kind of a pattern, rational theory. It's not going to come up in a few years. It's going to take decades. Because it's a completely experimental vaccine, mRNA vaccine. It's going to take decades to understand it. Yeah, that's why I'm not taking the COVID vaccine. I take every vaccine in the world that has been vetted and time tested. But you got to remember, this is a global pandemic. We're not talking around with like a few cases here, a few cases there. You have an outbreak there and then outbreak there, but it's okay. No, COVID-19 is everywhere, right? It's constantly mutating. You cannot stop it. It's like traveling at the speed of light, warp speed. COVID-19 is mutating at warp speed, and no warp speed vaccine will be able to keep up with it. You see what I'm saying? Because by the time you identify COVID-19 here on this planet Earth at warp speed, COVID-19 is already in Mars. And you think the COVID is in the Earth. You have to travel at warp speed to catch up. Like cloaked Klingon vessel travels at, and then decloaks and travels at speed of warp speed. I mean, by the time you realize that it's already in Mars and you're on Earth. I mean, you could fire all your missiles all you want. It's not going to destroy the Klingon vessel that is warp speeded away. So it's like that. It's like playing cat and mouse with COVID-19. By the time you identify it and try to vaccinate it, destroy it, it's warped away, warp speeded away, and it's in Mars. So nothing you throw at it with what you built based on what you've seen a few weeks ago is going to work. You see what I'm saying? So you're thinking that vaccine creators are developing vaccine at warp speed, and then COVID-19 is just staying same, that it's not changing at all. It's like, I'm on Earth, I'm just going to wait until COVID-19 vaccine makers create this vaccine to destroy me. You're assuming that that's what COVID-19 is doing, that it's not changing its makeup, it's not doing anything. It's just waiting for vaccine makers to kill it. I mean, are you kidding me? Do you think the environment is that simple? I mean, you see how ridiculous that is? If you're creating vaccine at warp speed, why don't you think that the virus is mutating at warp speed? You see what I'm saying? You're assuming like virus is just like stagnant and like frozen in time. Like, you know, you froze all the COVID-19 in the world, and like you're developing vaccine based on COVID from yesterday, and it's the same today. It's the same tomorrow. No, it's not like that. It changes. It changes at warp speed. So yeah, you may have Operation Warp Speed, but that warp speed is always several steps behind COVID-19 warp speed. You see what I'm saying? I'm explaining in language that you understand, right? You can understand. This is why I don't believe in the liberal media. They're not scientific. They assume that COVID-19 is staying the same as people develop the vaccines. You think living organisms are that simple? Have you seen Nova on the life cycles? Like lion is trying to eat the deer or gazelle. Do the gazelle stay the same, like stay in the same spot so the lion can come and eat it? I mean, you're going against rule of nature, how nature operates, right? You cannot expect COVID-19 to stay there in the same spot and not mutate so you can create a vaccine and kill it. It's not that simple. Life is not that simple. And that's why, you know, I'm not taking COVID vaccine. Because yeah, I wish these vaccines work, but they're not gonna work. And I'm using science. And so yeah, you know, 2,000 Arlington County public school teachers got vaccinated, but maybe that's what's gonna kill them. I mean, my prediction is because 2,000 Arlington public school teachers were vaccinated, we're gonna have far more Arlington public school teachers getting COVID and dying. That's my prediction. I hope I'm wrong, obviously I'm hoping I'm wrong, but we will see, right? If Arlington has a spike up in COVID-19 cases and a greater percentage of people dying from COVID in the next few weeks, and many of them happen to be Arlington public school teachers who got vaccinated, then I know I'm right. Right? I'm saying we just need 2-3 months to prove my theory correct or wrong. I don't need more than 3 months. Yeah, give me 3 months. I'm positive I'm going to be proven correct that these Arlington public school teachers who got vaccinated will get COVID and die in large numbers. That's my theory, and I believe I'm correct. Obviously, I wish I were wrong, but as I said, it's the curse of being a Leonardo da Vinci that I'm almost always right. And I believe I'm going to be right on this one. Yeah, let's see. And I believe that a lot of nurses will die who got vaccinated from COVID-19 for the same reason. Because South African COVID-19 will come here. UK COVID-19 is already here. Brazilian COVID-19 COVID mutant is coming. Ohio, Columbus, Ohio COVID mutant is coming. And there will be dozens, if not hundreds, of mutant COVIDs from all over the world coming in the coming weeks. And you know, your immune system better be intact. Your DNA replication process better be intact. You know, I mean, geez, you don't want to be screwing out with your body genetic processes. You know, that's why I'm not taking the mRNA vaccine. So my theory is that because of COVID-19 vaccines, a lot of more nurses will die, more teachers will die. That's my prediction. And I believe that all I need is 3 months to prove my theory correct. 3 months. Yeah, because we will know, right? We have 2,000 teachers in Arlington Public Schools vaccinated. We can study which one of them get COVID and dies. If none of them dies, we could say, hey, your vaccine worked. Doesn't mean it will always work, but that worked for 3 months. Right? So, you know, I'm excited about, 3 months development. You know, if none of them die, I'll be like, praise the Lord. Great, the vaccine worked. I'll be the first one to celebrate. But I fear that I'm correct, meaning a lot of them will die. And I will have to say 3 months from now, in my anniversary episodes, this show was created April 2nd. So every second day of the month is an anniversary episode. I'll be like, I told you so. And that's the sad thing, I mean, you do what you want. You just follow your gut instinct. But I'm trying to follow the science, and I have my theory, and I'm hoping my theory will be wrong. I don't think it'll be wrong. Italy has 83,681 deaths. Spain has 54,637 deaths. There were some idiot Christian evangelicals tweeting out, "Oh, thank God for the miracle of the vaccine." I'm like, what? You don't even know if it works. Why are you calling it a miracle when you don't even know if it works? It's like saying, I build something for you, and you're like, "Oh, it's a miracle," and then you try it out and it doesn't work. I create a toy for you and it doesn't work. You gotta try it out before you could say it works. So I'm like, these idiot evangelicals saying that God has given them a miracle. Just because you have something called a vaccine doesn't mean it's a miracle. It has to work. We're gonna find out in the next 3 months if it works, right? People who are vaccinated, if they die, it doesn't work. Obviously, it wasn't a miracle by definition because it didn't work. So yeah, before you jump the gun and start, calling something a miracle, which isn't a miracle, people don't become saints over fake miracles. Just wait and see. You know what I'm saying? Just wait and see. Let's see if it works. Today, I thought, we should think about ER nurses, emergency room nurses, because that's a dangerous job. A lot of ER nurses are going to die. So the theme of today is ER nurses risk COVID death daily, which is true. Because you don't know who's walking into your ER room, right? I mean, they could have COVID. And you could get infected from any one of the patients walking into ER room and you could die from it. That's the daily life of ER nurses. It's tragic, especially if they got vaccinated, and if my theory is correct, then their immune system becomes compromised over time. And my argument is that it becomes exponentially compromised over time as DNA replicates and there are mistakes in the replication process due to mRNA vaccine. Eventually they'll get infected and die. That's my theory. Obviously, you just got the vaccine and your DNA may be replicating correctly for a while. But, it's like drip, drip, drip on a faucet, right? You hardly notice it, but eventually it becomes a stream, So I'm saying like 3 months from now, these COVID-19 people who got COVID-19 vaccine, their immune system and DNA replication process will be so compromised by that time that they'll get infected easily from COVID. That's my theory. So let's look at what happens in April, around April. And then we could talk more. I mean, it may take longer. I'm saying 3 months, but it may take 6 months. It may take a year. Because DNA replicates every day, right? I mean, every second, So let's see how that, how that works. That's how cancer develops, right? Cells don't replicate correctly, and that's cancer. That's what cancer is. So they may get cancer and die. They may not get infected from COVID. They may just get cancer and die. But ER nurses probably will get COVID because, there's a lot of COVID around, it will infect them. But, there are teachers and nurses who may not be always exposed to COVID. So they may, if you're not exposed to COVID, you're not going to get it. But, their cell can, replicate in a wrong way. And that is by definition cancer. So, you either die from cancer or COVID infection, over the long period. I hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping I'm wrong. It's just a theory. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I hope like the politicians who say that it's going to work and the liberal media who say it's going to work, I hope they're right. But I don't think they are. The first article, the one that could calm the storm, staff mourns loss of not just ER nurse to COVID-19. A lot of ER nurses are dying, getting COVID and dying. A beloved not just ER nurse died Friday. a few days ago from complications related to COVID-19. So one of the tragic things is you could get COVID and you could die from COVID while you have COVID. There are a lot of people who get COVID, they get quote, healed from COVID. Weeks or months later, they die from something else. So their death is technically not from COVID because they're COVID negative when they die. But if they had not gotten COVID a few weeks or a few months ago, they would not have died, right? But they died from, like, say, a heart attack or from something that's unrelated to the first COVID diagnosis. They no longer have COVID now, but they'd still die because their organs have been so damaged by COVID. So can you say that they died from COVID? You know, probably their death will be ruled as death from heart attack, not COVID. You see what I'm saying? So there are probably far more people who are dying from COVID. If you include all the people who are now COVID negative, who died from COVID, who were COVID positive, let's say 2-3 months ago. You see what I'm saying? Because it's you know, if they didn't, COVID-19 did not damage their organs, they would not have died. So technically it's because of COVID. But because they're technically COVID negative at the time of death, they're ruled out as COVID-19 death. You see what I'm saying? Especially if they go to a different hospital. They might have been treated for COVID-19 in Virginia Hospital Center in April 2020. And they go to MedStar Georgetown University Hospital in January 2021 and dies from a heart attack. You know, they have no record that this person had COVID in 2020 April, and they're COVID negative now, right? So it's going to be just ruled as death from heart attack. They may die, you know, on ambulance over, you know, from heart attack. How are you going to know that he had COVID? He's dead. You can't ask him any questions. Yeah, going back to the article. Sandra Powell worked in the Marriott Health Natchez ER emergency room for 25 years. Her colleagues have been reflecting on her professionalism, leadership, and lasting friendships she made with them. Sandra was a cancer survivor, beating lymphoma and breast cancer, but she lost her life after a 3-month battle with COVID-19. Can you imagine that 3 months battle? Some people survived though after 3 months, you know, but she did not. She was intubated on December 11th, so like over a month ago. She had a tube stuck down her throat that helped her breathe. After several weeks in the hospital and transferred to Marriott Health Madison, quote, working through COVID nonstop, just a trooper in the emergency room, a leader in making sure that our patients were taken care of the best that they could be, fellow nurse Lee Hinnon said. She may die of COVID too. She's in the emergency room. Second article, a nurse who got vaccinated tested positive for COVID, but that's not unexpected. Of course it's not unexpected because COVID-19 vaccine doesn't work. You know, that's my theory. And I believe I'm right. You know, because you have case after case of this happening all over America. At what point are you going to say it doesn't work? You know, are you waiting for like 1 million cases of vaccinated getting infected to say that vaccine doesn't work? You know what I'm saying? At what point are you going to say it doesn't work? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm just being practical here. I'm just being realistic here. You know, I mean, I am the first one to hope that there is a vaccine that works for all COVID mutations, but that is not science. That's a hope based on like fiction. In science, it doesn't work that way. You know, I don't believe the liberal media, you know, that feeds you fiction about COVID-19. I live in the real world. I deal with reality. I don't live in the fictional world. Yeah. I'm glad that 2,000 Arlington public school teachers were vaccinated because we could study them to see if they get COVID or not, right? I mean, They're like lab rats. You know, we can see, from them whether the vaccine works. Yeah, so I'm kind of excited though. I mean, obviously I don't want them to die, but from a scientific angle, it's kind of exciting. The story of an emergency room nurse who tested positive for COVID-19 after getting the first dose of the vaccine is a reminder that hand washing, social distancing, and masks are still going to be crucial in 2021. What the hey, man? What the hey, right? Think about it. What the hey? He got vaccine and he got infected 6 days afterwards. What the hey? I mean, you're social distancing, hand washing. You have to do that after vaccinated. Why the heck would you get vaccinated? Doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? It's not like you get vaccinated and like you don't have to wash your hands anymore. I mean, you should always wash your hands. There's a lot of junk there. But I'm talking about for the purpose of COVID-19, you know? Matthew W., a 45-year-old nurse in San Diego, received the Pfizer vaccine December 18th, 6 days later, after working a shift in the COVID-19 unit. Matthew had chills, muscle pain, and fatigue. A drive-up hospital test confirmed he was COVID positive. That's going to happen to a lot of nurses, unfortunately. Sometimes, you know, you like to believe in a lie. You know how it is? You have to have rational mind. You got to act in a rational way. You need scientific data. You see what I'm saying? Just because Trump tells me that it's going to work, I don't believe it. You know, Trump says a lot of things. I mean, I like Trump. I like the guy. But just because Trump tells me vaccine is going to work, I'm not going to believe it. You know, I need scientific proof. Third article, Alabama nurse who refused to retire during pandemic dies from COVID-19. You know, I'm telling you, you nurses out there who are retirement age, if you don't want to die, you should retire. Because you're exposing yourself to COVID-19. You're like destined to death. I mean, if you don't die, that's like a miracle. Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to die and you're retirement age, you need to retire. I mean, geez, for God's sake. I mean, you know, obviously, if you have a calling from God to die from COVID, treating people, go right ahead. You know, I praise the Lord that God gave you this calling. Because we need nurses, we're short of nurses. So if you're willing to get COVID and die using your skill, great, praise the Lord. But all I'm saying is if you don't want to die, you need to retire. You know what I'm saying? You decide what you want for yourself, right? You're not a slave, you do what you want. Can I get a 5 on you're not a slave, you do what you want? You're not a slave, you do what you want. Can I get a 5 on that? Yeah. Third article, Alabama nurse who refused to retire during pandemic dies from COVID-19. Yeah, but that's not just in Alabama. It's going to be in New Jersey. It's going to be in Pennsylvania. It's going to be in New York. It's going to be in Virginia. It's going to be in Washington, D.C. It's going to be in Maryland, right? You just exchange the word Alabama with Virginia. Virginia nurse who refused to retire during pandemic dies of COVID-19. You know, it's just as effective, just as true. You know what I'm saying? Certainly will be true throughout 2021. Betty Greer Gallagher, sounds like it's an Irish name. Registered nurse who worked more than 50 years. Wow, that's, geez, some people don't even live that long, especially during COVID-19. Some people die like before 50. You know what I'm saying? Wow, that nurse worked for 50 years as a nurse. That's like incredible. As an emergency room nurse, I mean, obviously before COVID, working as an emergency room nurse, it wasn't that dangerous, you know? You know what I mean? But in the age of COVID-19, it's the most dangerous job in the world. ER nurses and ICU nurses, that's the most dangerous job in the world. and refused to retire during the pandemic, died this month from COVID-19. Known as Miss Betty, Miss Gallagher worked much of her career at Costa Valley Medical Center in Sylacauga, Alabama. Her loved ones told CNN she worked the night shift and loved caring for patients, co-workers, and family. Toward the beginning of the pandemic, co-workers asked her to stay home for her own safety, but she refused. She worked until she contracted COVID-19 in December, and we know the ending. She died from it. A lot of nurses are going to die, and it's sad, but this is global pandemic. Nursing is the most dangerous job. If you're a nurse, you should expect to die from COVID. Obviously, if you don't die from COVID, praise the Lord. That's great. But you should expect to die because you can die. Like, I hope I don't die from COVID. You know, I'm doing everything I can not to get COVID and not to die. But I know that I can get COVID because I'm a nurse. I know I can get COVID and that I could die from COVID. That's something that I know. And I think every nurse who is taking COVID-19 seriously knows that they can get COVID and they can die, right? And people who live with family members, they know that not only can they get COVID, but they can give COVID to their husband and they could die. And you know, there are nurses who are madly in love with their husbands and cannot imagine a life without their husband. For them, their husband's death would be more tragic than their own death. Yeah, there are a lot of nurses like that. And then some of the children of the nurses can die too. So we're looking at a very, very sad 2021. It's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. Yeah. So, you know, if you're a nurse, you should make out a will because there's high chance you will die in 2021. It's only going to get worse. And unfortunately, winter will not end COVID death. Spring will continue COVID-19 death. And even spring will not end COVID-19 death. Summer, we're going to have COVID-19 death by the thousands every day. Obviously, you know, we want to reduce it from like 10,000 to 4,000. You see what I'm saying? Because it would be horrific if we have like 10,000 people dying every day in the summer. That could happen. So don't be surprised if that happens because we're kind of headed that way. Especially if schools open, and I know Joe Biden is dedicated to opening schools, which I don't understand this guy. You know, I mean, we have 4,000 deaths and he wants to open schools. What's going on in his mind? We need to close the schools down. We have the technology to go 100% online learning. Why not use it to save lives, for God's sake? What does Joe Biden want? Open schools and kill 20,000 people per day in the summer? You see what I'm saying? I mean, geez, I don't know what's going through that guy's mind. I don't believe the liberal media, which says, oh, COVID-19 vaccine will protect you. On what basis are they arguing this point? You know, I mean, obviously not science. Virus mutates and it can evade vaccines. I mean, that's just the scientific truth. I mean, there's no scientist who would disagree with that statement. Viruses mutate and can evade vaccines. I mean, that's a scientific fact. Every single scientist in the world agrees that that can happen. And that does happen because it's a scientific fact. There's no scientist who would disagree with that. So where is the liberal media getting their idea? Some kind of like superstition, you know, folk religion, you know, I don't know where they're getting this idea. The vaccine is going to work all the time. Like it's like a panacea. It's like a miracle cure. You know what I'm saying? It's absolutely ridiculous, this liberal media. You can see why this show is important, right? Because I bring you truth. I bring you analysis that's expert. I give you education on global pandemic in ways that you can understand it so you can make informed decision about it. Obviously, my recommendation to you is socially isolate. Do not associate with other people in person. Communicate online with everyone you know. Do not meet them personally, unless it's worth dying from COVID-19 for, like someone you want to marry or, someone you're considering, possibility, a good friend who you want to risk death to meet up, whatever. Unless, it's like that, you shouldn't do it. I'm not going to be visiting my mom and dad this year, 2021, because I don't want to, I don't have COVID, but, who knows what's on my clothing. I don't want to create any situation where my mom and dad will get COVID and die. Yeah, because I love my mom. I love my dad. I don't want them to die. They could live 20 more years, Yeah, you have to be careful. So, some elderly people, they rather live with their family and die than be alone. And I think that's a good thing. It's just, if you're a teacher or a nurse, you're risking death if you live with if you're a teacher doing remote education, then yeah, you can live with your mom and dad. Their lives are not at risk because you're teaching your students remotely. But if, like, Arlington Public Schools forces you to go teach your students in person, and you live with your mom and dad, then you're risking their death every time you teach, whether you're vaccinated or not. So that's why, if you're a teacher or a nurse, it's probably not a good idea to bring your parents to live with you. You should tell your parents to live with someone who don't teach a lot of children or a lot of patients, like patients who could have COVID, or, find a brother or sister, who works from home, for example, and have your mom and dad live with that brother or sister, But yeah, I disagree that you should have elderly people living alone. I think that's a bad idea because it's dangerous enough. Being alone is dangerous right now. COVID-19 America. You should bring your mom home to live with you, especially if she's alone, like your father has died. You shouldn't leave her alone. That's just cruel. But obviously, if you're a teacher or a nurse, I don't think you should bring your mom to live with you because you're risking their death. But if you're not a nurse, if you're not a teacher, you should bring your mom who lives alone to live with you. I think that's the humane thing to do, Yeah, I give you practical advice. You do what you want, but I think if you're a nurse or a teacher who teaches in class, you are risking your life, you are risking your family's life. And that's why I don't think you should bring elderly parents to live with you. But, thankfully, because I've worked hard to close all the public schools here in Virginia, Northern Virginia, Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, and Fairfax County, in Virginia's 8th district, if you're a teacher, you can bring your parents to live with you safely. Unless the superintendent becomes crazy and forces you to teach in class, in which case you can die from COVID. Your children can die from COVID. So you should not bring your elderly parents to live with you, obviously. That would be too dangerous. But you do what you want, you're a free person. You're not a slave. So you do what you want. I will bring you more expert analysis tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow. I created this show on April 2nd, 2020 to save you and your children's life from COVID. Everything that happens around COVID too. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I hope that your family will be well. Auf Wiedersehen.